Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Tales with TR 241A. I'm your host, Terry Ryan Jr. Excited. This is Shoresy week, baby. Season 4 coming on Friday. I got some questions from you guys I'll answer and a hockey question or two. You know I'm not going to get to every single one, but I'll try my best. But first, let me point out that I will be in London, Ontario, Wednesday and Thursday. Thursday, we've got a fundraiser for Special Olympics. I'm going to post all the information tomorrow. Terry Ryan 2020. Just follow me if you're in the area. We're going to raise some good money. I know it's myself, Davis Schneider of the Toronto Blue Jays, guy I really look up to. Worked real hard to make the majors. I mean it. Check into it. Guy from New Jersey that I think he went the 28th or 30th round. Not exactly a number one prospect. And, did it. He worked hard at it, and he's a full-time major leaguer now. That was a couple of years ago. Set the record, Davis Schneider, or tied it, I think, for first 3 games. Yeah, I think he had 9 hits or something, 3 hits in each game. I think he was the first rookie to do it since so-and-so, like 1920. It was something absurd. Anyway, him and Adam Oates, and another, person that would be thought of by many, many people, a little bit older than me, I guess, who his name is Adam Oates. So Adam Oates, I don't know what Adam is. Probably, he came up playing the 80s with Hull. And, when I got drafted in 95, he was still around. He was definitely in the twilight of his career. I'm going to guess 10, 15 years older than me. Someone that just, like I said, without as many social media options, there was no internet, in the 80s, early 90s, when I'm watching, players that would end up being my favorites. They say that your heroes are formed like between 8 and 12. Well, I watched a lot of hockey and baseball and some other things, definitely music, but hockey was a main theme in my life. Surprise, surprise. And I'd have so many VHS tapes. We talk about Senior's Basement. A lot of you guys have heard of it. You've seen us down there on Chicklets or my Instagram, or there's been all kinds of interviews. We had Ron McLean down there with Hockey Night Canada one year. It was Kraft Hockeyville was here. Grapes as well. That was back before the Rift. Grapes. They were all here for hockey, and it wasn't that long ago, maybe 8 years ago, and which I suppose is a long time. If you're listening to this and you're 16, that's half your life. But you know what I'm saying. In fairly recent history, I've done a lot with Senior's Basement. We grew up. It was almost a hub for all my friends in Mount Pearl, at least on the weekends. But what I don't talk about much is all the VCR tapes. So when I'd go on the road, like I would, strictly for road trips, I would record, my favorite shows, whatever, Seinfeld, Cheers, whatever it would be, just so we had them. This is right before you could just buy them on the DVDs. DVDs existed, but in the 90s, I don't know if they did in the 80s, and you couldn't just go out and get whole seasons of things. So that's what I would do. And so in our basement, they're all labeled, and you see that. But growing up, we used it for hockey highlights. So I still have them, and they're in random orders. I just used to put it on, and every night it wasn't called TSN Sports Center like it is now. I think that's because they affiliated with ESPN, I believe. Sports Desk it was called TSN Sports Desk. So then Gino Retta, Jim Van Horn, Darren Dutishin, remember these people coming on, and they were the anchors, and they would bring you the sports news each night. And I just knew that if I recorded it, you could time it too. I might even be in bed. This is when I'm a kid, Is it 8, 9, 10, 12, whatever. As long as I remember there being VHS tapes, and we would often do that. So I would have all these hours of random highlights, like anybody. It could be fucking Tom Chorsky from Mats Naslin. If it was a goal, I saw it if it was on TV. And now not everybody were heroes. Not everybody did I look up to. Like I looked up to Chris Nyland and say, who are my favorites? Well, obviously Lemieux Gretzky. Now, Chris Nyland was definitely a favorite. Joe Sakic, Steve Yzerman. There were lots that I really, really liked. They were my Mount Rushmore. Right under that were people like Adam Oates, who never played for a team I cheered for, say Boston or St. Louis. He played for more, but and he never captured my imagination the way a Montreal Canadien could, or Gretzky or Lemieux with their just their incredible hockey IQ that you can only see certain highlights. Like imagine now where every single goal is recorded. And they were magical to watch. It was at times mesmerizing. It was breathtaking how good Mario Lemieux, and even in the big moments, and Gretzky, and like didn't matter. Big game. I believe that all-time Lemieux highlight that he had so many, but that you might see he's going. I think it's Minnesota, and he makes a move. He goes right at the 2D and turns him inside out, and then dekes the goalie. Well, that I think was in like the Stanley Cup final, right? Like Gretzky, when he got his record-setting goal, which Ovechkin's about to beat, it was back in Edmonton, right? Late in the 87 Canada Cup when Canada needed it 1-1, 5-5, Gretzky to Lemieux. Like they just had this knack for scoring in all the big moments, right? Like, or coming through. Wasn't always a goal, but it was just, man, you could set your watch to it. So that was all, as far as my favorite players and everything. I watched everything Habs. And then I hated the Leafs. I don't now, but I hated the Leafs then. But I still watched every highlight because of that, because I wanted to shit on them, right? But there was only so many options. You listen to records or watch highlights. Most of the time we were outside playing sports. It wasn't always hockey either. Soccer, baseball, fucking whatever it was, basketball, volleyball at times, beach volley, like whatever was around for us to play, we were doing it. But all that time, like I often don't talk about people like Adam Oates because there's so many layers under my absolute favorites and my hobbies and my daily routine that I don't talk about them. But Adam Oates was fucking magic to watch, especially when he played with Brett Hull. Hull being one of the best shooters ever, and Oates being one of the best passers ever. It was beautiful. It was watching creative art at its finest. It was just wild. And he's going to be at this event too. And I'm really looking forward to that because most of these guys I've come across, coming up, I was fortunate enough when I played with the Habs for there to be people like Shane Corson and Darcy Tucker who had their finger on the pulse, so to speak, right? They knew a lot of, well, Tux ended up, he was a rookie like me at first, but Corse, he was 31 when I met Corse, or 30, I guess. And he'd played with guys like Chris Chelios and Brian Scrudland, and just meeting them meant the world to me. Gary Lehman, who had 50 for Toronto. People don't even talk about that anymore. It's a crazy stat. Look at it. Gary Lehman was a defenseman in junior, gets drafted as a forward. I think I actually got drafted as a D, got put up front, and got 50 with the Leafs. No one talks about it anymore. These guys are wild, man, but I got to meet most of them. Joe Newendike and Al Iafrate, and met them through Bird Dog, right? I just happened to have these friends that were connected, that were legends themselves, but, they were just some of their best friends were these people that I looked up. They were so iconic that I would get nervous opening my mouth. And even now, to be friends with Wendell Clark at a lot of these events that we do is almost it's almost surreal to me. It shouldn't be, because I did like get drafted and play in the league, and I am on a TV show that's hockey centric, and we're all hockey players and fans at the same time. And I'm so immersed in hockey that you would think that sort of thing doesn't really mesmerize me anymore, but it really does. It really does. And maybe because of my lack of NHL success, I never really fell out of that fandom stage. But I don't know. I think no matter if I had 50 goals 3 years in a row, I think I would still. I think I would still look at it like that. I don't know if it's being a only child and my father being a fairly humble athlete. He jokes, but really, his experience and his messages to me growing up, if there were any outside of like, this is how to take a wrist shot and whatnot, think he's a coach too. He's a great coach. But it was always be humble and be a good teammate. And if you get interviewed, make sure that you don't sell anybody out. And everything revolved around the team. And so it's no wonder I liked guys like Shane Corson and Wendell Clark and Chris Nyland, because outside of those one-on-one conversations we had, I could see him watching the TV, and I knew where his heart was as a hockey player. I mean, he was a huge Habs fan. Dad was Habs all the way, but I also we had no connection to the Detroit Red Wings whatsoever. But I remember him. I don't remember the exact speech, but I remember him saying, if you could be like Steve Yzerman, if you're wondering, like, how to handle your Pee Wee team and being the, it's all relative, and you're the captain of that team, and if you wanted to get a head start on what hockey is like, if you ever go away or want to take the next step, then I'd act more like Steve Yzerman than so and so. I'd watch Wayne Gretzky as much on the ice as off, and Lemieux, and these guys were the best at what they did, but they were definitely humble, and they would as humble as you could be for a superstar, I suppose. But you know what I'm saying? It's always team first, always. And I was taught that because that was his experience, and I think my dad found success in having that attitude. So I always gravitated that way. And now, and again, that Adam Oates, I'm sure, is a great teammate, but it wasn't in my face. I watched Adam Oates. The least of the original 6 teams that I would watch would be Boston Bruins. Outside of that, like, I had no reason to watch the St. Louis Blues or the Washington Capitals. I played 6 or 7 years there, but I would gather all that info when the highlights came on, right? Full games, I'm watching the Habs. If they happen to be playing another team that Adam Oates plays for, great. But I would normally only see him with highlights. And then after a while, you're like, Jesus, this guy's fucking phenomenal. And then I just brought up his hockey DB in the 90s. Now, all of a sudden, when it came like 24/7 highlights and things became more accessible, yes, now we got HD and there's cameras fucking everywhere. I'm sure they are in people's fucking helmets, for fuck's sakes, and their sticks. I don't know, but there seems to be cameras everywhere. I mean, literally in their helmets, and I don't think anybody foresaw that. But the mid to late 90s started to be round the clock highlights, and all of a sudden now, and then of course shortly after, it says Adam Oates retired in 03, 04. That was well into when you could like go on the internet and do a search for your favorite player, whatever it was. And the more I found out about Adam Oates, the more I was fucking blown away, man. Like, this guy, I'm just looking now, and his assists, 142 points in the show. I don't care what era, that's a lot. 97 assists that year. Right? Remember last year there was Kucherov and McDavid became only like I think second or third players, something like that, ever to get 100 assists in a season, maybe fourth or fifth, but it wasn't that many. And I'm looking now, look at Adam Oates. Assists 79, 90, 92, 97, 88, 80 in 41 and 48 games. Like, it just always seemed that he could set up, I mean, any player, but he was just so good with the best players because they would maximize their potential. I mean, hence Brett Hall being one of the best scorers ever, and played with Adam Oates for a lot of those years. Or at least a few of those years. I didn't realize he started in Detroit. I forgot that. But it was magic to watch this guy play. And I'm going to get a chance to meet him. Really looking forward to it. I drifted off again. That was supposed to be a 1-minute intro. It's a 16-minute. But anyway, so I'm going to be there in London at the Special Olympics fundraiser with those 2 gentlemen. I'm really looking forward to it. Now, a lot of you guys wanted to know what I thought of the McDavid suspension. I think, yeah, it should be a suspension. If I don't want to get into it, but I found a few opinions online, and my favorite would be Kevin BX's. In other words, this would be your argument for fighting in the game. 2 major cross checks at the end. I'm not saying I want Connor McDavid dropping his gloves all the time, but just a different culture. You probably don't see as many cross checks in the face as you do the people just dropping their gloves. Now, let's see here. The Oilers. Let's see when the Oilers play. The Oilers are playing the Canucks on Thursday. I would suspend both of them, honestly, for a game or 2. I would want them in on Thursday. They were probably the people making the decision. Probably said, you know what, let's make sure that they're sitting the next game. But I don't know. I like a bit of juice. I like a bit of energy, a bit of fire, a bit of reason to watch as a fan. And violence is not always bad. Connor McDavid knew what he was doing. Now he was out of gas. Connor Garland's all over him. If you don't now, what I think, in other words, I can see how it happened. He snapped. There's a couple things going on. Yeah, it's not the end of the world. They got 3 games. It's really not. What did Matthews get a couple of years ago? That's a comparable. I think he got 2. That might have been 4 years ago. But me, I'd have given them both 1 game. Right? I don't think you're going to get too much complaint because both sides have a player sitting for a game. Which, if it was only McDavid, Vancouver fans give him 5 or whatever. I think we can say both guys cross-checked their opponent in the head, and we probably all agree that it was going to end up being the same amount. So that's me. I give 1. 3 is not the end of the world. I'd just give 1 because I'd want to see them play against each other again with everybody in the lineup. Now, I remember a situation in junior, and I believe Mike Hasenfratz, I believe he's passed on. Now, let's see. He was the referee, Mike Hasenfratz. Yeah, he passed away just a few months ago, 2024. So he was, I don't know as far as great referees go. I know he did a lot of our games in the West. It wasn't easy back then. A lot of fights breaking out, a lot of pissed off teenagers that in the peak of fighting in the game and, the peak of the Western League ferocity, viciousness in some people's eyes, violence, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't easy to be a referee back then in the Western Hockey League, I wouldn't think. So I really don't know who was the best, who was the worst. I remember Mike Hasenfratz was damn good. I remember Tom Cowell. They did a lot of our games. I know there's more, but I'm just naming a couple that come to the top of my head. So, the best player on my team, and you could argue in the league that year, was Damon Langkow. Nothing against a lot of the other great players, but Lanks led the league in scoring. So there's always going to be an argument, right? You really want to know? I would always vote for Langkow. But if Lanks wasn't an option, I would have picked Tucker. I think Tucker came second to him in scoring, but it wasn't just that. Tux would do anything, and he'd get under your skin, and there was no, I don't think, stat then for drawing penalties, but Tux not only got penalty minutes, he would draw penalties, he would bury on the power play, finish his fucking hits. He wasn't as built as he was in the NHL either. He was a lot skinnier, and you just wanted to fucking squish him, and you couldn't ever track him down to do it. He was a very, very intense player. Kamloops won it all. So if you took Lanks out of the picture, I'd probably say Darcy Tucker. But anyway, point is, at that particular year, you could make an argument for Lanks. So we were at the end of the year, we were playing Spokane. We ended up winning in 7 games. I think it was the end of the 5th game. And it was the same fucking situation. Lanks was getting raped by somebody in front of the net. I don't know, man. Jay Birch, fucking Dmitry Leonov, one of these guys that was out there to do that. And that's the way hockey goes, right? So absolutely nothing against the guys that were trying to get in Lanks's face at the end of the game, because I've done that at some point. It is hockey. And, there's going to be a level of that if you're a good player. I mean, come on, right? Good players draw attention. So it was late in the game, and Has put up his arm, and he called a double penalty. Now, I remember this because I went fucking crazy. And I'm like, Lanks is in front of there getting raped. And by the way, ladies listening, I don't mean to be insensitive, use the word rape. Some people, I mean, whatever, it's fucking term. You know what I'm talking about, but I know it pisses some people off lately. So whatever. But in hockey terms, this was what we would call rape in front of the net. And so whoever it was, and Has puts up his arm, and he called the penalty. But I was wearing a letter so I could go talk. And I said, Lanks is getting, and you're going to call both of them, and we need a goal. And he explained it really well. He said, well, I put up my arm because he said I could tell Lanks, and Lanks would have. Lanks was known to, I have it on video against the same fucking team, Hugh Hamilton, a couple of nights later. He fucking cross-checked him in the face, man. It was a 10-game suspension in today's days, or I guess at least a 3. But it was definitely a little bit more vicious than McDavid's. Let's say a 5-game suspension. And this was a couple nights later. I don't know when it ended up happening. It was the same sort of thing. It was like in the middle of a bride. I don't remember, but I know that Lanks could really lose his mind. So Mike Hasenfratz, he said Lanks wasn't doing much there, but he said, I figure whatever there was, there's a minute left. He said, before he does do something stupid, I knew but he was calling them for the penalty, right? He was calling them for a 2-minute minor originally, and he just seen it keeps happening. We had the puck. So he explained to me, he said, the only way I could blow the whistle is by giving Lanks 1-2 because you guys had the puck. But whatever it was, he gave Lanks a 2 and he gave them a 4, I believe. Some version of that. He gave them much more. He might have given them 2 penalties on the one play. He might have done that, but still put Lanks in there. And so we ended up with an extra guy. So not only did we have a power play, now we had a 6-on-3 if we pulled the goalie, right? And we were out there because it was a 5-on-4. We pulled the goalie 6-on-4. And I thought, wow, that's really thinking outside the box if you're a ref, because Lanks wasn't really doing anything. But it did settle him down a little bit, going to the penalty box. Now he's probably telling Jay Birch to go fuck himself or whoever it was. But you take that heat of the moment out, I think I heard Biz say, McDavid, in the heat of the moment, you don't have oxygen to the brain. There is something to that. If you're really, really tired, you're probably going to snap. It won't take you as much to snap, for sure, as if you weren't. So I just remember going, fuck, that was a smart thing. I don't remember if we scored or not. I should. It was a big part of the game, but I don't. I remember we won in Game 7 because I scored the OT winner, baby. Check it out online. But I really don't. But I remember that. It really stood out as one of the better calls that I'd ever seen. Now, at the time, Lanks might have been pissed off about it, but Mike was doing it to, he was trying to control the game, and he did. Like, we should have gotten an advantage, and we did get an advantage. Now, not having Lanks on the ice wasn't a great thing, but I think he handled the situation very well. I mean, you got a split second. Right here, it was just the same as the McDavid play. Look, what do you have, 10 seconds, and then he loses it? So within that, a ref, I think, can see that happening. And Mike just happened to blow his whistle at the right time. And first of all, rest in peace, Mike Hasenfratz. And second of all, would have been a good move now. That's a lot to expect. I don't expect that. But a veteran ref might be able, I don't know who was reffing the game either, but it might have been. I don't hold it against him for not doing that, but you could have. It must happen here and there. I mean, referees must talk like players talk, right? I don't have to be your best friend, but situational things happen during a game, and you talk about it. You would have to think referees know exactly what I'm talking about, and not a criticism, but that might have been a good way to handle it. But hockey's, guys. People are going to snap sometimes. I actually thought, I'm not being in this because I'm on an Oilers show. I'm not saying it because McDavid is McJesus or anything. But I probably think Myers was a little bit more because he was standing there. Who was it? Hyman he hit, I think. And, he's, or maybe not, but whoever it was, he had time to think about it. He wasn't really being provoked. Now, of course, you could be provoked with words. I mean, hello, Shoresy, right? I mean, that's his whole thing. So that could have been happening, yes. I thought McDavid's was definitely more spur of the moment. They both could be defined as that, but McDavid was being physically abused to a degree. And I didn't see what led up to Myers being so pissed. I'm sure it was the same sort of thing, but it seemed more thought out to me. So there. But both of them getting the same amount, I think, was the right call for the situation, because they're both blatant cross checks to the head. And as much as I love old school hockey, I don't like seeing that. There you go. I'd rather see a fight. And as a player, I would way rather drop my gloves and fight the toughest guy in the league than the weakest guy in the league cross check me in the face. I know what both feels like. I literally do. Punches I took. Ty Domi was a story that a lot of you might know. And, it's shits and giggles years later. And, I was 18, he was 26 or whatever he was. And, I fought him and what's that? There's a song out there, The Day I Fought Mike Tyson. think it might be Fresh Prince. So it's a fun little anecdote I got about fighting him. But no, really, like a lot of the other guys I fought. I mean, look at the fight card in the minors. They ended up being NHL heavyweights. Everybody from Sean Thornton to Jody Shelley, fucking Frankie Lassard, Ryan Vandenbush. I know what it's like. There you go. I know what it's like to take a hard punch. And I also know what it's like to take even a light cross check. And the second option there kept me out more than once with post-concussion syndrome. I've been punched in the head as hard as you could be punched. I don't know if that's a good thing, and it might rattle me a bit, but it's nothing close to the post-concussion syndrome you feel with getting lit up with your head down, coming through the middle, or getting cross-checked in the face. Both to me. I've had post-concussion, I think 5 or 6 times. The worst keeping me out for a year when I was 19. I don't talk about it much. But pretty much all of 96, 97. I mean, I was in Montreal a little bit, but a lot of that was, when did I get hit? It was January 26th of 96. I was playing junior. You can check that out online. I got hit by Kevin Pop, Byron Brisky, and Damon Lankow. Forget what the handle is, but type in those names, Terry Ryan, Byron Brisky even, and you'll see the highlight. I get fucking smoked. So most of that, it took me up until September. I'm going to camp now. I started to feel pretty good. And the Habs, that's one of the reasons they said, do we want to send you back to junior to get in a bunch more physical altercations? And I was pretty good by this point. I don't want to say fine, but I went through camp and I made the team, so I must have been all right. And I'd only played 4 games, right, up until the trade deadline. I get sent back to junior, and people are like, "Were you pissed?" I think some of it in Montreal's mind were, we know you were coming off a concussion, and you can come up here and learn, and you can practice and learn, and these guys aren't going to fucking be fight well for the most part. Aren't going to be hitting you hard or hitting you with your head down, or they know that we're all here, we're a team, and you might get into a game. So I did get into 4. I was pumped to get into 4 games, but for from January till September, I was really, really hurting. And then after that, it came back here and there. I ended up going to the Mayo Clinic and getting some pills. I remember, I think they were called Sibelium to thin out my blood a little bit. Whatever was going on in my head, that worked. But anyway, I know what post-concussion syndrome is, and you're going to get it through cross-checks more often than getting a punch, trust me. Even if you don't know what it takes, what it feels like to take either, I think you can do the math. Picture a cross-check with a stick in the face, nonetheless, or a punch. Punch will knock you a little bit, but the cross-check might hurt you for a longer time. Well, it did with me. Now, I totally understand why the cross-check happened and why they've not a new in hockey. Cross-checks happen, man. You get pissed off. It's usually heat of the moment. I just prefer fights. That's it. You might prefer cross-checks. I think, with less fights comes more of that. Sticks, cross-checks, slashes, But, hey, whatever you're into. The original question, do you think Connor McDavid should have gotten 3 games? Thought they both should have got the same. I think 3 is excessive for like the player with the most eyes on him in the league, especially when they're playing again. You want to see both guys in the lineup. You want to create a rivalry, I think, not discourage one. But that's me. I'm talking from the 90s, baby. That was my opinion. I stick with it. I'm going to be back. So I'm going up to London, and I'm going to bring my computer. There's going to be a lot of great, interesting people there. So I don't know who my guest is going to be tomorrow. I can promise you that there will be one. So thanks for tuning in. And please, Shoresy, if you're in the United States, I think you got to wait another month. But here in Canada, January 24th, there are going to be 2 episodes. Then every week after that, you're going to have 1 episode every Friday, the way it has been up to this point. And it's just you got to wait a little bit longer in the United States. But February, hey, it's coming. I'm looking forward to it. I love a new season of Shoresy as much as you guys do. We shoot it. It seems a lot of fun. But until you see it, we're not in every single scene. We certainly are in front of the camera, but we don't know, how the scene is going to look on camera. We don't know really what, often the context. We know the context to do the scene, but when you see it all come together, because we shoot it often out of order, right? That's just the way any TV show works. So for me, even though I know what's going to happen, it's still great to see it in a linear perspective. And see the story told the way it's supposed to be told. And I'm lucky and privileged to be part of the Shoresy story, and I just love that it's still going. And knock on wood every day. That I talk about post-concussion syndrome. Boy, back then, in the midst of the worst of it, it was hard to see the forest through the trees. And times like this were in the future, but it was hard to really even gather that and comprehend it. If you are going through post-concussion out there somewhere or any mental adversity, it does get better. Trust me. Not everybody's going to be on a hit TV show, but I guarantee you that if you stay with it and you stay positive, wherever you are, whatever you do, good things are going to happen. Folks, if you're downtown St. John's, Newfoundland, and Labrador, and you want to go for a beer, why not go to Trinity Pub, TJ's Pub, Rob Roy Confusion, the Martini Bar, Green Sleeves, and, of course, the Bull and Barrel. If you're going to go for a bite to eat, why not do it at Loose Tie, Blue on Water, and, of course, Wedgwood Cafe, who also do catering on Elizabeth Avenue. Contact Peter Wedgwood, Wedgwood Cafe. You want strength and balance for the body and mind? You need go no further than Rope Walk Lane. You know what's there? Ryan Power at Power Conditioning, Rope Walk Lane. Strength, balance, body, mind. Want to go to Mr. Lube? There's 2 locations here in beautiful St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. One's on Torbay Road, one's on Camera Road. Live, laugh, lube. Check out the Carpet Factory while you're at it. True Hockey. Take what's yours. Pitbull Pain Relief. Paint sticks that just don't quit. And of course, folks, if you're in town and you need the services of Crown Cabinets, they're the best in the business. Jordan Escott, Donnie Escott, and Crown Cabinets. Look no further. Thanks very much, folks, for tuning in. I'll be back very soon with more Tales with TR. Catch you guys on the rebound.